Hello and welcome back to Third Channel. Woo, we are back. Ooh. Now, you're probably wondering, Tom, where have you been? Well, I've been somewhere. You'll find out later. Who cares where I've been? I'm here now. I haven't forgotten. Anyway, today I'm back doing my lovely interviews because who doesn't love a lovely interview? And today I'm here with a very special guest, and this special guest has done one of the greatest programs on British television, but on BBC Scotland that I hope people have seen, and I am the campaign manager to watch it. He's best known for Scott Squad. It's wonderful, Stuart McPherson.
All right, what's going on?
Well,
How are you?
all right. So let's get back to the beginning. The beginning is always a good place to start, as Julie Andrews once said. How did you get into comedy?
Actually, I always get this wrong. I forget now. It's been so long. It's crept up on me. But actually, the first comedy I ever did was I submitted sketches as part of like a young writers outreach thing for the BBC Writers' Room. They were making a sketch show about the independence referendum in Scotland in 2014. And I was a young writer at the time, and I sent sketches in, and they got on the air. And that was the first comedy I'd ever done. But then I started doing stand-up in 2015 at the Stand in Edinburgh. Did my first open spot, and I've just never stopped doing it since then.
And what was the audition process like for Scott Squad?
It was very unique because I don't know how much you're aware of the show, but it's largely improvised. So we get a lot of just like stand-ups and like people who aren't necessarily actors. I'd never acted before. I'd never had any plans to act. So I'm not an actor. Or an improviser, to be fair to me. But they see a lot of people, and there was a lot of stand-ups and friends of mine, and you go in and you're told to think of like a character and a situation that would call for the police. Because if you don't know, it's all about the police and different members of the police and how they interact with the public and solve crimes and stuff. And I had to come up with an idea. And at the time, I was working on a golf course as a greenkeeper. Not a proper one, like not sitting on tractors and stuff, sort of, with a fly mower and strimming and stuff like that. And we'd been burgled, so I came in with this real life scenario of a greenkeeper that had been burgled, and he was kind of at it for insurance money. He was trying to like pretend that more stuff had been stolen than actually was. And so you sit across from like the producers, and they play the role of the coppers, and you're sort of like a member of the public, and you sort of improvise with one another. And I never really thought anything of it, but they had me on to do, like you interview for audition for like a bit part to be in one episode, and then they seemed to like me, so they brought me back in the next series and enhanced my role. And then before you know it, it's kind of like I can't remember how many series I was in it now. We did 8 in total, I think, and I was maybe in it from the 3rd or the 4th. So it just kind of all happened really organically. And in the end, I ended up sort of taking auditions, and I was sat on the other side of it and auditioning other people, which is also really, really weird and surreal. And it's weird. I still work with the producer now that auditioned me. How long would that be? 8 years ago now. I've just sat in a room with him all day today, and it's so weird that I pretended to be a greenkeeper with him 8 years ago.
And did you get to meet any of the other cast members from the show?
Yes, but not for a long time, because it's quite a unique show in the way that it's filmed, because you kind of are only on set for your own stuff, because it's almost like a sketch show. There's different couplets of people, or you're on your own. So for the longest time, people would be like, what's Grado like, or what's the chief like? And I'm like, I have no idea. I've never met them. But then we all met. I'd met a couple of them here and there, and I knew a couple of them as stand-ups on the circuit. But I kind of met most of the people we were at the Scottish BAFTAs one year, and that's when I met everyone for the first time. So it's kind of weird to meet in those circumstances. But then I was lucky to, when Joe Julia, who's the creator of the show, when he left, I kind of got his old job. So then I ended up working on the set, and so I got to know everyone that way. And was really cool to meet everyone. There's very nice nice group of people.
And what did it feel like when you found out that the show was ending?
Um, I guess sad, but because it's such a fun job, and it's probably more sad for me because I'd got that kind of not promotion, but because I'd started working on the behind the scenes stuff, and I'd only done that for like the last series, the penultimate series rather, and like a couple of the special ones that we did for like the Euros and Hogmanay, because I was basically just treating it as like an amazing opportunity to learn about how you make comedy behind the camera, and just, I was really soaking all that in, and it was really cool for me personally to get all that great experience. So I would have loved to have done more from quite a selfish standpoint of like I would get to keep doing this job that I really enjoy and I learn so much, and so I would have loved to have done more. However, 8 series is like a crazy amount of time for like not many shows get 8 series. So, and we had loads of spin-offs, and so you can't really complain that the time wasn't right. We had more than our fair share. So I wasn't too upset about it.
And for anyone that's wondering, all 8 series are all available on BBC iPlayer.
Yeah, check it out.
It's
I think there's best ofs as well. We did best ofs at the end, so you can maybe watch them first, get a taste of it.
it's very much worth it. It's amazing. And not only have you done Scott Squad, you've also done something that, from my memory, I can't remember when it started, but it's been annual. What was it like doing Queen of the New Year?
That was really cool as well. That was for me. I've only done that once. But they've done two though, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but I think they're going to do a third one. I'm not involved with the production of this. I've just heard rumors, and I'm just like a day player acting in that. But so yeah, they did one, and I watched it the year before I was in it because I had friends in it, and I really enjoyed it. And then I acted in it last year. I kind of came into I don't know, I've just been very lucky. I sort of fall into things through the back door. Like with that one, me and my friend Stephen Buchanan, who is a very funny stand-up, and like we were all pals from the stand-up circuit, and we do a podcast together. So we've kind of worked together for years to varying degrees. And then we'd done a sketch together, just literally filmed in this flat in the front room that we put out. And the guys, Rob Florence and Greg Hempel, they really liked that sketch. So they're like, why don't you come and basically redo that sketch, but set it at Hogmanay, because that's when the show goes out on New Year's Eve. So we kind of came to it in a weird way. Steve was already in it. He was in it the year before as an actor and a writer, but I kind of lucked into it this year. And then they were like, well, Stu's around anyway, let's just put him in a few more sketches. So I wasn't in loads, but it was a really fun experience, and it's really cool to, like, I'd met Greg and Rab before, but it's nice to work with them again, and they're like people that I grew up watching on the TV and really respecting. So it's one of those moments where you're kind of looking around thinking, this is cool, this is a good opportunity,
And going back even further, that's the correct word. What type of TV shows as a child inspired you to like make your way into the like entertainment comedy industry?
I don't know about you, I'm assuming you're a big comedy fan, Tom. Yeah, I was the same, and it's kind of like, it's actually quite a boring story really how I got into it, because people go to comedy, especially stand-up, loads of broken people, and they come to it for loads of crazy reasons, but I just loved comedy, and I was into it, and then I did it. And the first things I ever remember, like, when I was very young, like, I think I was like 3 or something, and like at my Nana and Grandpa's, we'd always watch VHS tapes of Morecambe and Wise, all their like Christmas shows and all the old Morecambe and Wise. And round at my granny and granddad's, we'd watch Ricky Fulton. Do you know him?
Oh,
You heard of
yeah.
Ricky Fulton? Yeah, like old school kind of Scotch and Rye and stuff like that. So it was like sketch shows, and I would be like 3 or 4, and I would like quote. I'm maybe not that young. That seems crazy, although that is what like my nan tells me. But I was very young anyway, and I would like, yeah, watch them obsessively. So that's kind of weird. Like, that's very old school for like a 3-year-old in the late 90s, to watch like Morecambe and Wise and Scotch and Rye. But my sister now, she always says that I speak in such a weird, antiquated way a lot of the time, and I probably blame the diet of VHSs I was raised on. But it was that, and then I got really into sitcoms when I was still too young, but like I really loved watching like in my mind I watched like The Office like straight away, which can't really be true because I must have been like what was that 2001 when that
Yeah,
came out?
it was 2001, 2002, just borderline.
I would only be like 8 or 9. I can't have understood it, can I? But in my mind I did at the time. And like Phoenix Nights I loved and Blackadder, and then what else? There was loads. I mean, still Game was a huge one for me. That's why it's kind of surreal, like knowing Greg now. And Chewing the Fat, I loved the sketch show, and just honestly, like almost anything I could get my hands on. Like when I was a kid, it just felt very adult, felt very grown up and exciting to me to get to watch. Kind of, people are swearing and stuff. It's cool. It kind of felt like this, I don't know, different world, and I loved it. And it's funny thinking back now because I can't have understood like 90% of what I was watching when I was a kid. But I was definitely watching stuff way too young and just loving it. So yeah, it was all sitcoms really growing up. All those, even like ones that aren't really talked about. Like I really loved the show The Thin Blue Line.
Oh,
That
nice.
show, Ben Elton. I used to love that when I was a kid. Just anything really, anything I could get my hands on.
And for all you Blackadder fans, the 2 Blackadder documentaries will be out at some point in June on Gold.
Nice.
So they're airing the pilot. Now, you mentioned earlier about your podcast. How did the idea of the name of the podcast come about?
Well, which podcast is this? Is this
It's Some Laughs.
Some Laugh? That was Mark came up with that. Mark Jennings. All I remember is Mark's kind of like our dad, even though he's only a year older than us. He's the adult in the room. He's in charge of all the business side of everything, if you can call it that. If it wasn't for him, me and Steve would never turn up to anything and nothing would get done. But I remember he'd set up, we had this studio space and we're like, we should just use it, we should do something. So we didn't really know what we were going to do. And we rocked up on the first day and we sat down, and I think it's in the first episode, which I don't think we put out the first one actually. But the first time I heard the name of the podcast was during the podcast. I had no idea. I didn't know what it was called. And I had no ideas. And Mark said that, and I was like, yeah, sounds good. And that was as much thought as was put into it. I think it's quite good, though. It's not a bad name. Kind of, is that a phrase in England?
I thought it must be with the youth. It sounds like a youthful term, but I'm not down with the kids.
Because we would be saying like, oh, that was some laugh last night, wasn't it? As if to say, that was a really good laugh.
It must be. It's just not a word I've come across. So that's why it's a good name for a podcast, because it screams comedy. Just in case anyone wasn't sure, it is a comedy podcast.
Well, yeah. What we say at the beginning is, we said, we're not promising all laugh. There's going to be some laugh. It sort of buys us a little bit of, maybe we'll just chat for 15 minutes with no laughs. We're trying to be funny. Believe me.
Yeah. And do you have any saying which guests come on to the podcast?
Yeah, it's kind of done by, I mean, usually it tends to be just folk we know, people we know from the stand-up circuit. But sometimes just from the nature of it, sometimes it'll be someone that I know more than the other two, or sometimes it'll be someone Steve knows more, or Mark, and vice versa. And it's kind of, there's been a nice mix so far. There's no booking policy, but it's just kind of like, usually it's just like, oh, they'd be good value on the podcast, or it's like someone interesting to us, or it's someone who it's just one of our mates, so it just feels like you're hanging out, which they're probably the best ones, to be honest. Or it's just like someone like, for example, like we just had Raymond Mearns on, who's like a circuit legend of comedy in Scotland, and just someone that we all really always enjoy spending time with in green rooms and think that he's so funny all the time. And he's just got endless stories and he's just great value. So why would you not want to have him on? There's quite a few people like that are just sort of unearthed, or at least it's not like we've got this amazing platform and it's beyond what they've got themselves. But if you've got your own small audience, you just want to kind of introduce them to like, oh, this person's great, you'll love them, kind of thing.
And do you have a like a wish list of which people you want on the podcast?
I think Mark does. I think there is a list somewhere probably of. I've not got a list, but there's definitely people that. Yeah, there's people we'd love to have on for sure. For various reasons. Um, I don't know if I should put the call out on here. I feel like, if you're watching, Timothy Chalamet, we want you on. I don't know. Just there's no. I don't know. I mean, Mark will have a list. I think I have seen it. I can't remember who's on there. Thank you. I'd like to have Lewis Capaldi. I think we can put that out then.
Because he's out there a lot on the internet.
Yeah.
We have to hunt him down. No.
Yeah, I feel like Scotland's pretty small. I feel like we're only really like 2 calls away from getting almost anyone. But you don't want to be too keen. You want to kind of bide your time. Hopefully, if we continue to grow, we can keep getting cool guests.
And when you had Greg onto the show, I'm not going to attempt his last name because I never get it right. When you had him on the show, were you excited to hear more about his like journey in comedy?
Yeah, completely. That's one where it's a bit. I think I was alluding to this a minute ago, but never articulated it well. But if we've got someone on that's just our pal, we can just hang out and shoot the shit, and it's great, and we're all having laughs. But when it's someone like Greg, it's not really an interview in the way that this is. Like, you're a proper interviewer. Look at you, you're doing a great job. We are sort of not that, but it is more like I'm happy to just learn about someone and take a back seat and listen and chime in occasionally. Greg's definitely someone like that that's probably the most surreal one where, it's weird how normal it feels to me now, mainly just because he is such a lovely, normal guy, and I've met his family, and I know his wife, and I've worked with her, and I've worked with him, and all, but there is always a part of you going, I watched this guy every day growing up. This is bananas. This is crazy. And it's one where, if I could show the 11-year-old me this, he would think that's the coolest thing in the world. So you never really want to get too cool to be excited about stuff like that. So we were excited to hear about all of his stories from back in the day, and how I think we asked a couple more kind of technically questions in that one, where it's how do you actually go about, because he writes, or at least he wrote Still Game with Ford, Kiernan and everything, and me and Steve try and write scripts together, and we were literally going to write in the office that day, and we kind of did want to know, how do you do this, by the way? You want to kind of learn from these people.
And when I found out who his wife was, I was even more shocked. I liked him to begin with. He got even better when his wife's former job, before she was on Scotswold, she was on Bangor.
Yeah, Miss Hooley. Yeah.
Greatest thing ever. When it all came on,
Yeah.
Series 4's on iPlayer in Bangor. I watched it. It's not a weird experience of an 18-year-old sat there watching Bangor.
We go to the same gym, me and Julia, see, and we work out at the same time sometimes as well.
And were you a fan of Bangor as a child?
I couldn't in good conscience tell you I was a fan of Balamory. I think I was slightly... What age are you, Tom?
I'm 18.
18, yeah, see, man. I'm 30. This is... I think I was a little too... I remember being on, I think it was more like my sister's 5 years younger than me, and it was one... I get mixed up now thinking back to what was her programs and what was mine, because we were watching a lot of stuff at the same time, but I think that was more her era, Balamory.
Yeah. And not only have you done TV and the world of podcasts, you've also appeared on some very fantastic radio programs. What was it like being a guest or breaking the news? And is it filmed similar to the TV version?
Well, I can't speak to the TV version because I've not done the TV version, nor have I been present when it was on. But I've done the radio show twice now, and it's interesting. It's funny. The more you sort of do stuff, the more you sort of learn that everything has its own sort of world and its own rules, and you have to play to the strengths and the rules of the show. Do you know what I mean? So with breaking the news, you get given, if you don't know, it's like a topical radio show, and they have rounds, and you buzz in, and it's like panelists, and you, so I hope I'm not sort of ruining the illusion for anyone to say that you need to write material ahead of time. You're not just riffing, so you get given the brief, maybe 2 days before, or maybe just one. You basically spend the day before brushing up on the news. I don't know about you. I don't tend to follow the news too closely if I can help it.
I had to do
I
all.
only, yeah, I only really do it when I have to for work, when I need to make jokes about it. So you get given the brief, and then you really try and rack your brains to think of like, God, what can I say? What can I, It's like it's kind of like cramming for an exam. You need to think about what's funny about, and sometimes the news is not funny most of the time. It's quite grim, and although they need to keep the tone light because it's like it goes out at like I don't know, like 11:30 in the morning or something, or 1 in the
Like,
afternoon,
it's
something like that.
1 o'clock in the afternoon. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, so exactly. So, you can't really be getting into you know, getting into stuff about weighty subjects per se. You need to keep it light. So you kind of just need to make sure that you've got 2 or 3 funny angles on every topic so that because there's 4 panelists as well, and Des Clark, who hosts it, he's fantastic at hosting it. But if you're the fourth of 4 and the first 2 have said things that you thought about saying, you're in trouble. So you need to sort of be primed, and it's just one of those where you need to really put in the hard work really beforehand to try and make it look easy. Although the first time I did it, I was on with my friend Mary-Elaine Robertson, and she'd done it a bunch, so she was giving me advice, but she gave me some bad advice at one point. She told me that she was like, I always try and do longer, like I'll do like one longer bit. Most of it's quite zingy, but I'll do like one longer bit. So it's like you could maybe just do a bit from your show, do a bit from your friend's show. I was like, all right, cool, I'll do that. And then I was in this, I did like I don't know. She was like, I'll do like a 3-4 minute bit. So I just did like a really long bit. And as I was saying it, I was like boring myself. I was like, this is too long. This is crazy. This is never going to make it in. And I could feel people switching off. But it was going all right, because they're a nice audience. But I got to the end of my long, boring anecdote from my show, which doesn't really work if you're sitting at a desk and not standing up holding a microphone. And then Marilyn just said like one word that undercut it, got like a massive laugh. And I was like, you set me up there. So if you're ever on it, I would say don't do that. Don't follow Marilyn's advice.
And the only thing about breaking news that sort of really does freak me out is that the air it on Radio Scotland at like 1:30 in the afternoon. And it's sort of like 11 o'clock, almost midnight, when they air the TV version on like
Yeah.
it's the same program because they air it again on the Friday on the radio, so you can either watch it or listen to it, but it's on different times. That's quite odd.
That is weird, actually. Yeah, I've never thought about that, but that is weird. Why would you not put it on? I don't know. Campaign. I mean, I'm not involved in the production of this. I've got no skin in the game, but let's campaign for a better slot for the TV version. Let's go
We
prime time.
need it more often as well because breaking news is fantastic. And so, what is the difference between working in TV and then working in radio?
In
Obvious.
Yeah, I didn't want to be there and say, you can see the telly. It was tempting, but no, radio is a lot quicker, probably for that reason. But when for example, I mean, I can only speak to the stuff I've been involved in, but with Scott Squad, which is a very quick shoot for the amount of material that we produce, we cram a lot in, we're very fast, and it's very efficient and stripped back, low budget, and you're churning stuff out. However, comparing that to like we make this radio show called Noising Up, which is like topical sketch radio, and like if you were to record an audio version of the same length of sketch, we can churn through them so quickly. Like even just in basic terms, like to shoot a 30-minute TV show, that might take you a week of filming, 10 hours a day, whatever it is. Whereas to do a 30-minute radio show, we churn that out in we record it for like 2 or 3 hours and then mix it that day. We do the whole thing in one day. So it's just a lot more immediate, the radio. It also forces you to be imaginative with the fact that, the gap between, you've not got pictures to fill it in. So in theory, you can set a thing on the moon and it sounds all right. Whereas if you were to try and shoot something that looks like it's on the moon with a BBC Scotland budget, you're struggling. Do you know what I mean? So you sort of have to work within the confines of whatever the form you're working in is, and they both have pros and cons. But I'd say the speed is one thing, certainly with radio, and radio obviously forces you to be quite disciplined with your writing because you can't rely on a funny gun to camera. You know, like you can't really. It's hard to tart it up on the day with radio. You can put a funny voice on or something and sound effects, but it kind of if the joke, whatever the joke is, if it's not well written, you're struggling, and there's less to fall back on.
So when you write in like sketches for radio, is it harder to write these sketches because you have to have a mindset of what people can't see?
Yeah, also just by definition, one of the problems with that is it needs to be very exposition-y. You know, you can put on waves crashing and seagulls, but you kind of, if it's set on a boat, you kind of need the first line to basically be, by the way, we are on a boat in this sketch. However you want to phrase that, you need to explain what's happening in order to set the scene. So, and obviously you want to do that in a joke, ideally. So it just means that you just have to put more thought into it, I suppose, into how you're trying to convey whatever the joke is. Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of, when you see something that's maybe on Amazon or Netflix and they've got all the money in the world they've thrown at it and you're like, this looks amazing, but I don't really know what the joke is.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of that.
Yeah. Well, with Amazon having all the budget, I think the rig, I am going to just go on a tangent for a small second, but the rig doesn't look very high budget. It looks very green screened.
Yeah, I've not seen it all.
Well, it looks very green screened. All the bits I've seen of it, none of it looks real. Because it's supposed
Yeah,
to
they don't.
be a rig.
Yeah, I don't know what went on there, Tom. You need to get on someone from the rig. Get Martin Compston on, he'll explain it to you.
Yeah, and so because you've been on Scott Squad and because the clips on YouTube have gone viral and you can the clips of the show pop up everywhere and I try and campaign for it wherever I'm knocking about.
Good. We need more boots on the ground like you, Tom. Let's get a 9th series.
Do you get like stopped in the street but because of Scott Squad?
Yeah, but not loads, but it does happen. It happened today in Tesco. But it doesn't happen it does, but it's not it's like a nice amount where I'm not famous, so it's still exciting for me, It happened twice recently, which was nice because it happened in front of, I was about to buy a pint and then it happened twice and then I got the pint for free because the barman was like, I don't know who this guy is, but he must be really famous. And he was like, you're doing us a favor, the pint's on us. You're keeping people happy. And you're like, that is the only 2 times it's happened for the last 3 months. I'm not famous. But it does happen sometimes.
And what's your favourite sketch that you've done on Scott Squad?
On Scott Squad, do you know what the funny thing is now? It's because I was involved, because I was there all the time on set as well, there was so much. I can never remember what actually made the telly now and what we just did on the day. A lot of my favourites never made the TV. Because stuff that's really funny, and there's something you really learn is stuff that's really funny on the day often just doesn't have the magic when it comes to the edit, and other things which didn't mean an awful lot on the day look really funny in the edit. But if I had to choose one, I'd probably say there's one where I'm with Alan McHugh's playing this sort of senior officer, and he's quite old school, and it's just fun. I'm on my own quite a lot in it, and it's fun to have other people to play with. So he's sort of talking about getting boots on the ground and trying to solve this crime. Meanwhile, I'm on my computer at the back and I've already solved it and I've ordered everyone lunch and everything. And that's just fun. It's just a very clear comedic idea and fun to have other people to play with. And yeah, I really enjoyed that one.
That's my favourite. So I was telling someone about that this morning, and they thought they just this is just fantastic. Well, find it. So I just think Scott Squad, no matter what it is, it's always funny. Another one of my favourites is the one it's one where they have the traffic cops and they end up catching Artie from the singing kettle.
Yeah,
The whole that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's funny. Stuff like that is just so simple, but just like pure and funny, and like there's really nothing to it, but it's just such good fun, you know. And that was my era. I grew up with the singing kettle. Are they still going?
Well, not well. I found out last summer that they had transformed into the Fun Box or whatever.
Oh,
They're another group now. But I used to watch singing,
no good.
and we went to watch the Pirate when they did a pirate show live.
Yeah, I went to see a pirate show live, and I cried, and my granddad had to take me home, so I was scared.
Well, my brother got to go on stage with them. I was really angry. He got selected, and I didn't. Oh,
It should have been you up there. What does he do now? You're in show business. What does he?
well, who knows? Got me. And so, not only have you done TV, radio, podcasts, you've also done the beautiful medium, the medium is taking the world by storm. It's stand up. And what's your favorite part of the medium? We all like to call stand up comedy, but not everyone stood up whilst doing the comedy.
Not everybody. My favorite part of stand up is having a new idea and trying it and it getting a laugh. That is just like the purest joy of the job, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it's sort of amazing. Because you know, the whole thing's great. Obviously, it's a great thing to do. I'm very lucky, you know, and it's every bit. Although I wrote those sketches for the Independence thing, every other thing in my career has come out of stand up. Really, like first and foremost, I'm a stand up really, and that's kind of how I think about the world and myself. And it's kind of it can be quite cathartic, you know, to process everything that happens to you in life through the medium of. It's a sickness almost, because you are basically thinking about material all the time. You're like, no matter what happens to you, you're kind of thinking, I could probably get a joke out of this, probably get a new bit out of this. And but just coming up with the ideas in the first place, if you're walking down the street and just something pops into your head and you're like, oh, I could try that on stage, and often it doesn't work, but when it does, it's like that. It doesn't really get any better than the first time you say out an idea and it gets a laugh. Or if maybe you've tried it a couple of times but it's not quite there yet, and then you sort of fix the joke and like, that's it, that's the way you do it. And that first time when a joke really lands, you're like, right, that's like so exciting still.
And do you write down your stand up or do you do it on the spot?
I write it down. You can't see, but I'm just like surrounded by scrunched up bits of paper, just on everything. I'm quite an analog guy when it comes to stand up. Just it's paper everywhere. Yeah, I keep notebooks. The main thing is kind of the notes app in the phone now, I suppose. Because often you will just be putting the bins out, and a thought will come to you, and you need to. That's would be my one and only bit of advice for anyone creative, is like you have to write down whatever it is immediately, because you will forget. Every time you're like, I'll probably remember that, and you never ever do. So I always obsessively keep notes of, like, they're not even always jokes. Sometimes it's just like something's kind of interesting to me, or there's like something truthful about, I don't know, something you think is truthful about yourself that you think, and then you're like, everything gets used eventually in some way, I think. So I'll keep notebooks, and I'll go through different spells where I think, I'm often throwing like stationery at the problem. I think, if I had a clipboard, then I'd really be good,
Yeah. And what's your favourite venue to perform stand up in?
I'm kind of spoiled that I live in Glasgow and there's so many good clubs in Scotland, and I don't travel too much. I do travel sometimes, but I can kind of, between the writing and the acting and everything, I can kind of get by mainly playing in Glasgow and Edinburgh. And I love playing Monkey Barrel in Edinburgh, and I play there at the Fringe, and I think it's the best place to be during the Fringe. Certainly, I think it's just such a great club to be a part of. I also love the Stand. I did my first gig at the Stand in Edinburgh, so that's always really special to me. And the Stand in Glasgow in particular is like kind of a perfect room for comedy, at least as a performer. It doesn't really, I've done bigger gigs. I've not done loads of huge gigs. I've done the odd theatre here and there, and they're great. But the stand in Glasgow's kind of a perfect room as a comedian, anyway.
And for anyone that's watching this that are interested or wanted to get into the avenue of stand-up, what advice would you give them?
I would say, watch a lot. Go and see comedy in your local area, wherever that may be. Go and see good stuff. Go and see bad stuff. Sometimes bad stuff can be really inspiring, because maybe you'll watch Peter Kay and you'll think, I could never do this. But maybe you'll watch someone who's not figured it out yet, and you say, well, I could probably be as shit as that, and that's a start. They're up there. You know, they're closer to me because they're holding the microphone, but that's achievable. I would say, yeah, start taking notes, keep notes of everything, and just literally, I mean, it's like skydiving. You just have to do it. You just need to jump out the plane. It's the only thing that you have to do in public to practice. You know, you can't. It's not like learning guitar or painting. You can't do it in your bedroom. You can rehearse, but you can't. The only way to learn is by doing it. So, like when I started, I signed up for Red Raw, is what it's called. It's like a night at the Stand comedy clubs. So they've got them in Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Newcastle, and it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they're for new acts, and you do 5 minutes. And I had no idea how to do comedy. I'd listened to like comedian podcasts. That's kind of where I got everything I knew about comedy from. And I kind of knew some of the pitfalls to avoid, but I didn't really understand how you got gigs or how to go about it. So I just, like, I'd been to the Stand, so I knew that they had this night. So I emailed on, it was like almost like I'm getting off the point here, but just do a gig, Google it, find out, or go to some open mic and figure out how you can get on stage, and write 5 minutes. Don't think that you can wing it. Just like try and write punchlines, because when you get up there and the lights are on you, it can be really difficult, and to think straight. I would just write 5 minutes and do them as often as you can, and try not to overthink it or worry about it too much, because you can't really. It took me such a long time to get good and get comfortable on stage, and that's half the battle, is like just sinking the hours into to doing it, to trial by fire every time. Don't sort of take it personally when it doesn't go well, because it will go badly a decent amount when you're brand new. But I just get up there as often as you can. And it's like such a cliche, but just write and gig as much as you can, and be nice to people, and then you'll all become friends and help each other as you go through, do it together.
And you mentioned there about like jumping out of the plane. Have you ever actually jumped out the plane before?
I was hoping you would ask this. No, I haven't. I've never even flirted with the idea. Have you?
No, I don't.
That was terrifying.
I saw that video of that bloke getting knocked unconscious in the air, and I thought, no.
No, not for me. I don't really like heights, Tom.
They're very high.
Well, exactly. I could jump out a plane on the ground.
Yeah, I had it.
Onto a trampoline. Yeah.
And with the way that comedy alters, changes, there's different highs of careers and different lows of careers. But what out of like the main shows that are on TV, like Outback Live or Live at the Apollo and Taskmaster, what type of like round like a panelist type show would you like to be on?
Well, obviously, if my agent's watching this, I'd like to say I'd like to be on any TV show that will have me. Please, thank you. But I would love to be on. If I had to pick one, I'd love to do Taskmaster. Just looks like the most fun. It's just, it looks great. And even if I was to think about it cynically, it's kind of the one that's like, it's not like they have any real new people on there. It's people who are already pretty established, but it's like the one that seems to make a big difference to people's careers now. It's selling tickets. But I'd really just want to do it because I'm a fan of the show, and it just looks really fun to do.
And if there was a Scottish version, because it's like Gogglebox now is getting a Scottish Gaelic version, because it's got a Welsh version as well.
Oh, is that right?
If there was a English-speaking Scottish version of Taskmaster, would you want to be on that, or would you want to still be on the original?
I'd like to be on the original, but I mean, if it's all I can get my hands on, I'll do the Scottish version. Why not? Are you going to pitch that?
And who would you like as who would you see as the Taskmaster?
Who would be? That's a great question. It probably would be Raymond Mearns, now I think about it. Or it could be. I don't know who the Alex Horn would be. That's the question.
I think Ford would be a very good Alex on.
Ford Kiernan. Yeah. Well, Greg and Ford, I guess, would be the dream. I suppose. Yeah.
Well, if BBC Scotland are watching, get on it.
Yeah. Commission that.
It'd be amazing. And do you wish you were on more panel shows in general?
It's not something I really think about, to be honest. I would do them if I got asked, but it's not something that's keeping me up at night. I'm not really bothered. I mean, yeah, I would do them, but I'm not fussed. Yeah, I don't want to sound too trite, but I'm pretty happy with how it's all going, and I really like doing stand up, and I'm doing my own thing, and I'm writing all these scripts and working on different projects. It's nice to be in the position where you're kind of happy with where you are, but if you get an opportunity, then that's brilliant as well, you know.
And going back to when you were talking about advice, when you said you were listening to a lot of Stuart Goldsmith's Comedians podcast, is that a useful resource for a comedian if they want to get into the art of comedy?
Definitely. It was for me anyway. I must admit, I've not really listened to it for quite a while now, probably just because, I don't know, I don't know, I'm just like, it feels like work now to me listening to it. It's funny. But I did listen to that before I started, and yeah, I would definitely recommend that. I'd maybe even, I don't know if this is like just because it's how I did it, but because I kind of started at the beginning with that, and I was quite, I don't know how I heard about it, but I was kind of into that straight away. So I think, I don't know if it's maybe changed slightly now, and as he's grown as an interviewer, it becomes less about the technique and more about the
It's still
emotional side of it. But maybe that's just my interpretation. But in summary, yeah, definitely listen to that if you want to learn about stand up. There's books you can read. You know, we've all Googled stand up books, and we all have all these books. But I think I would say his podcast's probably more useful than the books.
Yeah, because when you Google these books, they're all by like ex-American comedian, and it's all like
Yeah,
this is the American way, which is what Stuart does best because he's British. He also dips into international territories, but he makes it key to what the British stand-up circuit wants.
yeah, exactly. And he is a fully fledged professional comic of some repute for a long time himself, so he knows what he's talking about, and he gets really good guests. So the other thing with those books that I thought you were going to say is like they're always by some guy that you've never heard of. It's always like, you know, some guy that, I don't know, he like teaches comedy, but you're like, I bet if you spoke to the people in his circuit, they're like, oh yeah, don't listen to that guy. Whereas he'll speak to like, you know, the best comedians in the world.
Yeah, I have this like joke comedy book where it's all American, but it's all about like it's about the art of writing jokes, but he ends up talking about sitcoms that people have heard of, but they're like really terrible sitcoms.
Yeah, they'll be like, yeah, talking about, you know, when I pitched, you know, Honey, I shot the sheriff or something. You're like, I've never heard of that. That's like, you Google it and it ran for like 500 episodes in the 80s or something, but it's left no cultural footprint.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, and so if you what's your next step in your career goal? What do you want to do next?
Well, a big part of it is just keeping on, I think, and the sort of momentum of work, I think, sort of helps perpetuate itself. So what I am actually doing is I'm writing a new Fringe show, and I'll be working on that over the summer, and I'll take that to Monkey Bar at the Fringe, and I am I just filmed my last Fringe show at the Stand in Glasgow, so I need to edit that this week, and I'm going to put that out. So hopefully, maybe I've never really put anything out before, so hopefully I might convince new people to come to me at the Fringe next year. And I'm trying to sort of, in that sort of old-fashioned, unfashionable way, slowly build an audience in Edinburgh, I suppose, because that was the comedy I really liked in terms of stand-up growing up, because I'm from Fife, and it's like 35 minutes from Edinburgh. So I used to go to the Fringe a lot as a kid, and as a teenager, and I'd watch shows. So I really have quite a rose-tinted kind of notion of what the Fringe is. So I like putting shows together. So I'm working on my show, putting out the last one. I've just been today, like I've got a script in development with one of the channels with Steve that I can't talk about, but we're doing a second draft of that for a pilot that may never see the light of day, but we're really enjoying writing it together. And it's like, I think I never expect anything to ever get made, so it's just like to get paid to sit and make your pal laugh all day and write it down. And growing up loving sitcoms, just to be paid to like write one is like the dream as far as I'm concerned. It's brilliant.
And I hope your series does get made, because a lot of BBC Scotland pilots I have some annoyment with are really good and then never get made. It's like I think it's got which is all about like people in comas, and it's all the families. It was a pilot.
Yeah, I liked that. I saw that. That was good. Yeah, really good. Yeah.
Filmed a review of it, and then they never did anything else with it. I was so gutted.
Well, this one we're doing is not for BBC Scotland, but I'm also working on a couple of other things. One for a streamer where we're going to write a couple of episodes of this thing that's going to be translated from another language into being set in Glasgow for one of the streaming platforms. We're doing that this summer, and also making like a taster tape probably for BBC Scotland that I can't talk about, but does feature someone I've talked about today with you. So there's like a few irons in the fire, and also our radio show Noise and Up. I'm hoping the radio show will come back, put it that way, for After the Fringe. So there's 5 or 6 kind of things on the go, which is, I shouldn't admit this, but I'm terrible at multitasking, so it's a lot to think about, but I've got more than enough stuff on my plate at the minute. In terms of what I wish I could do, I don't know, man. I wish I could do less. I wish I could go on holiday.
And when you were saying about your editing, your last show to put online, well, I learned very recently, and not many people have done this. Well, a lot of weird people have done this, but on Amazon Prime, you can submit your own short film and your own stuff to them to put on the service.
Yeah, I've not considered that as an option for this, but yeah, that makes sense. I've seen some stuff up there that has been self-filmed and stuff. That's quite cool, really, isn't it? You wouldn't think of that as a thing Amazon would do.
Well, there's a lot of like children's YouTube stuff that's imported from YouTube.
Right.
That weird bloke that's got the yellow, orange and blue hat. I don't know what he's called, but he's some weirdo that's YouTube, and then went on Amazon Prime with the exact same nonsense.
All right. I must admit, I'm not au fait with the YouTube children. What's going on in that scene at the minute?
Neither am I, but it's when you're on Amazon Prime and you're looking for a program you want to watch, and then you come across like George building a house in Lego.
That's what kids want.
Yeah.
They're not very bright kids. That's what they like. They like Lego.
Yeah. And so to round this up, will your character from Scott ever return in any shape or form?
I like to think so. I don't know. It would depend on. I would not be surprised if somewhere down the line there's like a special or I don't know, a live show, or I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It's not something I've ever pushed or we've ever spoken about. But I think, gun to the head, I'd be surprised if it never ever resurfaced in any way. But you never know. I've no idea.
Well, it could come back for another special soon.
Yeah, give him his own series, man.
Because he is one of the best characters. I think.
Cheers, man.
I think Bobby. I think I'm saying this right. The one that keeps walking into the police.
Yeah, Bobby.
He's the second best character. It's like, how can you get into so many incidents so quickly?
Bobby is hilarious. Yeah, Darren Connell, who plays Bobby, is very funny. And actually, I forgot to say, I'm kind of trying to pitch something, not with him, but for him at the minute. I'm trying to get one of his ideas. I'm trying to help him with that. So that's another thing.
Yeah.
But he's brilliant, yeah.
And now that you've dipped your toes into the acting world, will you ever, and whether or not you can say, will you ever want to appear or are appearing in Two Doors Down?
Well, I can say that I've never been asked. Certainly, I can say that. I'd consider it. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't have a working relationship with those people, really. But yeah, I'd love to. But I don't know, man. You'd have to ask them. Probably not, I'm guessing. There's not much scope for new characters in Two Doors Down, really, is there? It's quite stacked as it is.
Yeah, they've got too many channels.
A lot of meat in the room.
And so now coming towards the end of this glorious interview, what have you got coming up that you want the viewers or the people to get so excited that their heads will explode at?
About me personally, or in general?
About you personally, yeah.
Yeah, the new National album I'm looking forward to. You can get that. Well, this stand-up show that is currently unedited, but it will be out on YouTube. Stuart McPherson, The Piche is what that was called, my last show. I'd love it if people sort that out and watch my stand-up, and maybe if you're in Edinburgh, come and see me do my next show, which is going to be called Love That For Me, which I have on this clipboard here. There you go, that's part of the show. It's a taster. I read off this clipboard at one point. So yeah, check out my stand-up and my podcast, I suppose, Some Laugh. And me and Steve are going to bring back our film podcast, What's the Script? This is the plan. We're going to sit down soon and crack them out again. So, and there's a back catalogue of them. We try and guess the plots of films that we've never seen, because neither of us know about movies, and it's really stupid. So you can listen to those.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of weird films out there. I can name one, Velma and Daphne, which is supposed to be a prequel to Scooby-Doo about Velma and Daphne, how they met. But in the film, all the technology they use is futuristic, but isn't in any of the other Scooby-Doo films. So they use like holographic forms, and then when you watch Scooby-Doo, none of that exists.
Make it make sense.
So it was a terrible film. But it was one of those direct-to-DVD films.
It's like when you see Postman Pat now and he's got like a helicopter. Oh, this isn't the vibe, guys. Come on.
Well, he used to drive around in a Royal Mail van.
Yeah. What about the strikes?
Yeah, it'd be the front of the centre. And to round off this interview in a neat, nice fashion, is there one project that you would want to do that you really that you want to do? Is there a project that you're dying to do that you want people to know you're dying to do?
That like I've come up with, or that's just like being James Bond kind of thing. What would I love to do? That's a tough one. I'd love to star in a movie with Will Ferrell. I'll be Will Ferrell's straight man.
There we go. That is a wonderful
Make it happen.
To this interview. Yes, make it happen. So, if you want to know where my other interviews are going to be, watch this space, because I do run 16 YouTube channels, and as of the time...
16?
Yes, and as of this time, we're recording 12-ish podcasts.
What?
And
you're a busy man, Tom.
I am. I do lots of those. So, more interviews coming soon. Thank you, Stuart, for taking your lovely time to speak to me.
Thank you for having me, Tom.
Scott Squad Series 1 to 8 and all the specials and best of is available on the BBC iPlayer. Hopefully they become available on DVD, or if someone wants to go even weirder with it, turn it into a VHS.
Yeah, why not?
So anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed watching this. Stay tuned to the main channel from any date after the 26th of May, and then there'll be a whole selection of interesting and amazing stuff. Something that will whet your appetite. And I might even left a clue by accident of what that is in the background of this. Because I just realised I might have opened it all, and I might have... So, anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching. And remember... No, I've forgotten.